And we have your startup money, unlimited public funds, with absolutely no oversight or accountability because it's all being spent in the name of security. And then it starts to make a lot more sense. Because from a business perspective, what you want is predictability, stability. You don't want to invest in a market if it could end, right? If it could end tomorrow, if this is some sort of flash-in-the-pan war. No, you want to know that this war is going to go on and on and on and on. And if you decide to diversify your interests, like a company like Halliburton, for instance, which has been diversifying into the immigration holding business, they got a big contract to build detention centers in the case of an emergency influx of immigrants, which is actually a veiled response to reference to climate change, because that's the sort of context in which you get an emergency influx of people. You have Blackwater, which showed up in New Orleans after Katrina, ready to diversify after Iraq and there to provide security, as they said, for FEMA. During the California wildfires, Blackwater's been very, very present there. They're interested in getting into the humanitarian relief business. So they're also interested in getting into the genocide prevention business. They want to go to Darfur. But so what threatens this whole new economy that has sprung up in the aftermath of 9/11 is peace, is that we could actually respond to our climate catastrophe through real political and economic action, like actual caps on emissions, and that we could decide collectively that we want to get off this disastrous course. We could take real action, like saying the Alberta tar sands, I don't know if you know about this, but should not be developed. I mean, that this is and we are continuing on this disastrous course. And I know we're going to have a lively question period here, but I think it's important to understand that to keep the disasters coming, all you have to do is nothing, right? You don't actually need to plan it. This economic model is a disaster. It is a disaster, and it will keep the disasters coming at us without any conspiracies required. This market model that we have of casino capitalism, of deregulated markets, will continue to create bubbles like the subprime mortgage one, and then crises that can then be exploited to push through policies that you can't push through during normal times, like privatization of Social Security and charter schools and school vouchers. Each one of these crises presents an opportunity, but just by doing nothing, just by refusing to regulate the market, you will keep having these boom and bust cycles. Just by doing nothing in the face of this ongoing crisis of climate change, we will continue to have ever more intense natural disasters, which can then be exploited in the ways that I've been describing. And by refusing to develop alternative energy sources and changing the way we live, we will have to fight more wars over scarce natural resources, scarce fossil fuels. And there will continue to be blowback from those resource wars. So just by doing nothing, this market is banking on us doing nothing. And just by doing nothing, the disasters will keep on coming. So that's what we're up against. Now, I think what's important to understand is that what's fueling this economy is fear. It's our complicity. And it's our willingness to be afraid all the time. And that is why a Giuliani figure is successful. The promise of the state giving us total security, which is a promise that they can't make, especially not if there's that they can grant. Also, the fear of immigrants is fueling this economy, and we can talk more about that. The fear of climate change is now fueling this economy. I mean, I wrote a column recently called Rapture Rescue 911 because I used to think that what was wrong is that this administration was run by a group of people who really believed the rapture was coming in their lifetime and that they and their friends were going to be airlifted out of here. And so it really didn't matter. And now I actually think that what they're doing is they're reenacting it down here. They're not waiting. You know, heaven can wait. We'll just have the rapture right down here. And the privatization of disaster response, what we're seeing leap forward. There's a company in Florida called HelpJet that markets itself, turn your hurricane into a luxury vacation. During the California wildfires, we saw something that we haven't seen in a couple centuries, which is private firefighters working for insurance companies, spraying down houses for the people who had paid very high insurance premiums, spraying down houses with fire retardants while the houses right next door burned down. So, I mean, we're living this. We were actually creating a sort of a rapture context, except for it's not about if you can pray, it's about if you can pay. And if you pay for these extra services, you will be saved from the worst of these disasters. And at the same time, we're creating an economy that is about containing the discarded people. The people displaced by these disasters, privatizing the detention centers, privatizing the surveillance. So you have the privatized containment and the privatized rescue simultaneously. So this is what we're up against. And you know, I do think, as Marcia said, that it is a revolutionary moment because people see this. It's becoming very, very naked. And the fact that there are so few people who are actually defend this on ideological grounds anymore is quite interesting because it is just indefensible and it is exposing this whole era that we have been living in as a revolt of the elites, a class war waged by the rich against the poor, a revolt against the New Deal and all of the policies that were put in place so that there would not be the kind of scenes that we saw in 1929. I mean, people demanded something different in the face of that crisis, of the market crash. And that was a different kind of response to disaster. That was disaster collectivism, if you will. That's what the New Deal was. And this whole era has been about dismantling that process. So it's that naked. I just want to finish with an example of another way of responding to crises. As Marcia mentioned, the books come out in a bunch of languages, including Spanish. And I was in Madrid recently launching the book. And it was a really interesting time to be there because they were just handing down the verdicts for in the terrorist attacks that took place on March 11th, 2004, those horrific attacks on the trains. And it was really interesting to be there in that moment because, first of all, they had allowed their court system to deal with this terrible crime. They hadn't abandoned the Geneva Conventions. They hadn't kidnapped people and taken them to secret prisons. It was in the open court system, and they had just handed down verdicts. And there were media allowed in the courtroom. All kinds of crazy things were going on there. And so it was an interesting time to talk to people about that event. And people in Spain refer to it as their 9/11. But they reacted to it completely differently. And I just want to remind you, because I think some of you remember and some of you probably don't. The day after those attacks, well, immediately after the attacks, actually, Spain at the time had a very right-wing president named José María Aznar. A big Bush ally went into Iraq with Bush against the wishes of his people. Immediately after the attack, Aznar just started doing his best Bush impersonation, which meant using the attack instantly to political advantage, just nakedly. He blamed ETA, the Basque separatists, with no evidence whatsoever. And then he also said, and this is why we're in Iraq, because these people want to take away our freedom, which made no sense. I mean, if it was ETA, then what does it have to do with Iraq? But it was, you know, the free association Bush style. And